Hello everyone, I just want to talk about something. It is this purist notion, or I don't want to say purist because that sounds a little dismissive, but in modern gaming culture, and not even just gaming culture, this goes for movies too, there seems to be this somewhat gatekeepy notion that the only correct way to view a piece of art is through its original pure state. So you have to play retro games on a CRT. You can't play remakes of any game. You have to play the original first and then play the remake if you want. Remasters are bad. They always change things. Every remake is bad because it ruins the source material, stuff like that. I feel like I have a lot to say about this type of discussion, because whenever I hear something like this, I just have this desire to be so semantic, because this all sounds very semantic to me. I am going to say something so crazy, and I know this rubs people the wrong way, but I'm gonna say it anyway. To me, saying that no game or movie should ever get a remake is like saying no game should ever get a sequel at all. It's like everything should just be some one and done sort of thing, and then it should never be touched again, when I don't agree with that. To me, that's just like saying you shouldn't like song covers, or different renditions of music shouldn't exist. So every director's cut is invalid, every second or third edition of every book is invalid. And I know someone's gonna comment, oh no, you're confusing remaster with remake or remake with remaster. It's different. No, I don't agree really. I know those things are different, but I think the same argument applies to both things. Whether you're against remasters or remakes, to me is the same thing basically. Whether you're against remasters or remakes, to me is pretty much the same thing as being against sequels at all. And I know that sounds crazy to some people. Like, to other people, that argument doesn't compute. That doesn't make sense. But to me, that is like being against different movie cuts, and I'm not even joking. That is exactly how I think. Like, oh, I'm gonna hate every sequel because it didn't understand what the first thing really was. I've met Silent Hill fans like that, actually. Like, they hate Silent Hill 2 because it didn't understand Silent Hill 1. Those fans are out there. I've talked to you guys. I've seen you guys in the comments. And also, what is an original version of anything? Who's to say that the original version of something was the original intent? A lot of great games are rushed to meet a deadline. Sometimes finished products don't reflect what the developers intended. There are many mechanics in the original version of Final Fantasy that aren't even programmed correctly. I would love it if there was someone out there who was truly consistent with this belief. Some people out there think that remakes shouldn't exist at all, but for some reason they stop at remakes, when I think personally that that's an inconsistent way to think. If you hate remakes, you should stand on business and say you hate remasters, sequels, and director's cuts, and anything past the beta stage as well. I suppose the point of this video is just for me to express a difference in how I view this type of thing. People tend to think that remakes and remasters are this unique type of media separate from sequels and director's cuts, when to me it's all just an expansion of whatever the original thing was. So to me, it's only consistent that if you are someone who is against the remakes and remasters, then you might as well just be against sequels in general and director's cuts and second editions and all these things. I'm sorry, but I don't really see a difference. This is very semantical, and I do know this sounds crazy. I know that there's going to be a few people who watch this and what I say just doesn't make any sense at all. They're going to think, what? No, a sequel is different. No, I really don't agree. If we boil everything down to its pieces, everything is an expansion of something before it. Do some remakes suck? Yes. Do some remasters suck? Absolutely. I will acknowledge that. I agree with that. I'm not defending every single remake ever made or every remaster ever made. This video isn't about a defense of anything. I just want to know why there is this arbitrary line between remasters and remakes and sequels. Why are these things divided? Why are remasters and remakes not okay, but sequels and director's cuts and second editions are okay? Why is anything past the concept art okay? Why are these things divided? Why are some okay and why some aren't? I know the argument is you shouldn't mess with someone else's work, but that applies to sequels. A sequel to a game very rarely has every single original developer. There are going to be new people on the team adding in their own creative liberties to whatever the original first thing was. Now, this is coming from someone who is kind of a purist themselves. I like the original version of things. Like Ocarina of Time, I vastly prefer the original Ocarina of Time over the 3DS version. There are a lot of remakes that I don't like, but I wouldn't gatekeep someone who does prefer the 3DS version. I really am sorry if it sounds like I'm talking in bad faith. I know some gamers hate modern gaming conventions, like they hate open world, they hate over-the-shoulder stuff. They much prefer the retro style of how games were designed. So I can understand being rubbed the wrong way when you see a retro game be modernized. I can totally understand that. And I can definitely understand not liking a remaster's art direction. In fact, I very rarely like remasters, to be honest. There are very few remasters I like. I don't even like the Shadow of the Colossus remaster. I prefer the PS2 version. I'm that much of a purist. So I fully understand that type of purist. In fact, I am that type of purist. Whenever I play a game, I always try to play the original version every single time. And I very rarely, if ever, use mods or anything like that. And I like playing games in their original resolution, and I like using CRT filters, but that's my preference. I like retro games. I don't like many modern games. There is a fundamental difference in how retro games and modern games are designed, and I definitely prefer retro games. And I don't like the word outdated. I don't think anything really ever becomes outdated. So I hope this stance I have, that this line we've created between remakes and sequels is an arbitrary line that doesn't really exist. We just imagined it. I hope this stance I have doesn't sound very bad faith on my part. Feel free to yell at me in the comments. I want to understand. I'm inviting people to argue with me against this. And thank you so much for watching, Dark Warriors. I will see you on the Silver Lining.